Hey guys, big moment here. I'm going to install the engine in my CRX, so if you want to see the process, then keep watching. I'm starting off by removing my front bumper. The car's freshly painted and I wanted to make sure I wouldn't make any scratches when installing the engine. I removed the hood as well, but I forgot to turn on my camera, so I don't have any footage of it. So let's start by taking the engine off the stand and then connect the gearbox. Now I'm going to lift the engine so I can remove the engine stand. After that, I'm lowering it to the ground so I can install the gearbox. I recently painted my oil sump, so I have to be careful not to damage it when putting it on the ground. And the engine is on the floor. Look how beautiful it is. So now that the engine's out of the car, I thought I might as well just change the clutch. So this was the set I'll be using. And yeah, let's install it. I'm always super happy with my new parts. Here you can see me sand the flywheel before installing my new parts. I'm not sanding it too much, but just enough to get rid of the glaze. And now it's time to install my new clutch. Please excuse the bad camera angle, by the way, I still need to practice with my camera placement. When putting the bolts in, I make sure not to tighten them right away, as I still need to adjust the placement of the clutch plate. And here you can see me trying to get the clutch plate centered. I know you have tools for this, but I don't have any, and I'm just eyeballing it. I'll know whether I did a good job when I try to connect the gearbox to the engine, because that wouldn't be possible if the clutch plate isn't centered properly. Now it's time to fasten the bolts of my new clutch. I'm tightening them in a crisscross pattern, using a normal ratchet first and then torquing all the bolts to spec afterwards. It would have been a lot easier if I had someone to help me keep the flywheel still while torquing the bolts, but I didn't, so I'm kinda struggling. This long wrench extension wasn't ideal either, but someone borrowed the shorter one, so I had to work with what I got. As you can see, I'm using my knee to support the wrench while using my other hand to keep the flywheel in place. Here you can see me replace the clutch bearing. I don't think this was the easiest way to do it, but it worked. I'm using the engine lift to lift up the gearbox. This way it's easier for me to get it in place to be installed. And now it's time to connect the gearbox to the engine. I was really struggling to put it on, but I got it in place. This is actually my first time doing this on the Honda engine, so I still have to figure out the best way to do certain things. This was actually my third try. I lifted the entire engine so I could install the missing parts and bolts on the underside. Unfortunately, I totally forgot to film it, but I painted these parts the day before installing. I know you won't even see them when the engine's in, but you know, why not? I then tightened all the bolts on the upper side of the gearbox. Maybe it wasn't the best idea to do this when everything was already hanging on the engine lift, but oh well, I didn't feel like lowering it again either. And now, the big moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to put the engine in the car. I made sure to lift it high enough so I could hang it above my engine bay. Oh, and I also covered my engine bay with blankets to reduce the chance of me scratching it. For this part, I did ask a friend to assist me. I was really scared of damaging the new paint in my engine bay, so it just felt a lot safer having someone with me, so we could look if we weren't going to hit anything. This engine is actually quite big for the car, so I had to tilt it quite a bit to be able to lower it into place. I also made sure not to rush it, even though I really couldn't wait to see how my car would look with the engine in. I had to tilt the engine a bit forward to line up the engine mounts. I'm using a lashing strap to make it easier for myself. So instead of lowering the engine any further, we decided to lift the car a bit. The engine was perfectly centered, so it was just easier to use the car lift for this last part. When the car was lifted high enough, I was able to put the bolt through the first engine mount. Yay! I then put a jack stand on the back side of the engine to support it. I just found out the engine mount in the back was quite ugly, so I painted it. But of course it wasn't dry yet when installing the engine. And here you can see me bolt on the second engine mount. Now that the engine's in, it's finally time to remove the old ugly valve cover and replace it with a new one. Of course I installed a new gasket on my other valve cover. I'm using an OEM Honda gasket. Very important step, making sure the surface is degreased before installing the new valve cover. I'm just spraying some brake cleaner on this cloth off camera to clean it. I don't think the gasket of the valve cover will leak, but I applied some liquid gasket to the sharp corners before installing, just to be sure. I only used a very tiny bit, because I know that you'll often overdo it. And there it is, my new valve cover to complete the look. Isn't it beautiful? So, the engine's finally in. I'm super happy with the result. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye!